Hey there, Streakers. Before we get started with this, the 400th episode of the Streaking Podcast, I want to give you a little bit of a word from the MyStreaks app, which happens to be our sponsor. If you're tired of starting things and not sticking with them, this app is for you. MyStreaks helps you build daily consistency in the areas that matter most, whether that's parenting, fitness, faith, leadership, or finally flossing more than 3 days in a row. Seriously though, streaks work. And after today's episode, you'll understand why in a whole new way. So head to the Apple App Store or Google Play and download the MyStreaks Streak Tracker app today. Welcome, Streakers, to episode 400 of the Streaking Podcast. Isn't that amazing, Jamie? 400. What a journey it has been. And today we celebrate it, this milestone, with someone who has deeply influenced both our lives and leadership, our dear friend, global thought leader, and legendary coach, Jim Huling. Now, before we get into the conversation with Jim, let me just give a little bit of background about him. Jim is the co-author of the best-selling 4 Disciplines of Execution, a man who has coached over 70,000 leaders worldwide, and the creator of Execution Insights, which is a powerful platform delivering weekly video-based coaching straight from Jim's heart and mind to leaders around the globe. In this conversation, it's rich, it's heartfelt. Jim shares with us what it means to live with purpose at 70 years old and still deadlift 400 pounds.
It's amazing.
It is. How he thinks about legacy leadership and why daily, deliberate actions are the truest path to become who you were meant to be. So here's what we explore. The 3 stages of a leader's life: achievement, scalability, and legacy. How physical discipline supports spiritual and emotional strength. The truth about building your purpose instead of finding it. How to use consistent action, streaks, little nod there, to authentically become the person you want to be, and why tools like AI should serve, not replace, human authenticity and intelligence. I think you're going to really love Jim's energy, his wisdom, and the love he has for people. It shines through in every moment of this episode. You'll laugh. You might even tear up. You'll definitely walk away with a deeper conviction to lead, live, and love on purpose. So let's dive in to episode 400 of this Streaking Podcast with the one and only Jim Huling. Let's start streaking. What is streaking and why should you do it?
Streaking is how you set up personal winning streaks. Look at who you want to be and what you need to do to become that person. This is streaking.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jami.
And we are streakers. Through 30 years of marriage and 7 children, we have learned the power of consecutive consistency, or streaking.
To start streaking is simple. You just follow these 3 laws. Make it laughably simple, keep a record, and join the streaking community.
Streaking is your hidden superpower. With it, you will consistently progress and grow in whatever area of life you want.
In this podcast, Jeff and I will share all the fun, exciting, serious, solemn, wonderful parts of family, spiritual, professional, and personal life, and how streaking powers it all.
So join us in the conversation, join the movement, and start streaking today. Jim, we are so glad to have you on. I want to start with this. You are our 400th episode of the Streaking Podcast, and you are the right person for that 400th episode. Thank you for being with us.
I think
We are
you
so
did that
excited.
was purely accidental, although maybe divinely guided. But what an honor! What an honor! I'll always hold the number 400 in a special place in my heart now. Thank you.
Oh, we are so excited to publish it. Well, I've been following you, and you and I have been close friends, and you and Jamie and I have had conversations before in the past, and I've been, you know where I want to start is this great exercise that you do. When I see you deadlift, I don't know how much you deadlift, but I just look at it and I think, how does this guy keep going in that arena? You've got to tell us a little bit about that journey that you've had, and as you've gotten, let's call it, more experienced, how have you kept up with with the exercise?
I freely confess to all of you, but part of it has been I've been a member of the CrossFit community for 13 years now. So it's so much a part of my life and my identity. So I will gladly answer your question, but I feel wrong if I didn't start by saying it's mostly about hanging out with great people who are doing great things, And it's like the marinade that gets inside the steak. when you're with people who are passionate and focused and purpose driven, you sort of end up being that way, whether you meant to or not. I hope I am that way anyway, but I certainly get that. So thank you. What an interesting thing. I think I get too much credit for this though. I mean, it's not every day you see a 70-year-old guy picking up a 400-pound barbell, right? I get
Is that what it is? Is it 400
400
pounds?
is
Is
the
that
current
kind
number, yeah, and I'm
Okay.
not sure
Wow.
I'm going any higher than that. I'm not sure. Maybe though. I'm not ruling it out, but maybe. But I think it's the anomaly of the gray hair and the barbell, the contrast of those two things.
Yes.
But I say this in a very heartfelt way. I'm so honored. I'm so surprised you started with this question. This is so great. It's classic Jeff Downs. Go in a different way. I love it. Can I say that my goals have changed, right? But my mindset has. My mindset's the same. And in the earlier years, I was chasing big milestones. I mean, every time I picked up the barbell, I wanted it to be 5 pounds more than it was last week. It really mattered to me. And I was kind of in the achievement phase of that, and
Yeah.
without making this the world's longest answer, I had just come off, before CrossFit, I had come off of a 14-year journey of starting at nothing and ending up being a 3rd-degree black belt and a Taekwondo instructor. So I'm very oriented toward progressive. It's no wonder I fell into the 4 disciplines world, because it's
Yeah, I was going to
Yes.
say the 4 disciplines of execution is
right.
right up that alley.
But to make it a real answer and not, it's already too long, isn't it, Jeff? But to say, I'm chasing something deeper now. I'm still exercising every single day. I still have a custom workout program. I still do all kinds of wild things, and we could talk about it someday if it was ever interesting. But I'm going for something deeper, and I think it's about energy and vitality. I'm so alive with my purpose at 70,
Yeah.
almost 71 in a couple of months. I'm so
Wow.
alive with that now, for this period of my life, my calling feels so strong that everything gets viewed in how it serves and supports my ability. I'm getting emotional right now. How to fulfill my calling, how to finish strong in my life, and how to one day reach that point where I look back and say, I did what I was born to do. I used the gifts that I was given. I'm proud of what I did. Not that there aren't mistakes and stumbles and, like the country song says, God bless the broken road that brought me here. It's a real life story that I have, but yet still it's one of perseverance and constant calling, that feeling of, I'm supposed to do something with my life. So now the exercise isn't about achievement. It's about legacy. It's a way that I can ensure that my legacy will be what I'll be proud of one day. As Dr. Covey said, begin with the end in mind. I want to get to the end I have in mind. I want to live that life with as few regrets as possible and the greatest possible impact that I can bring. And so the exercise is now a means to an end. Isn't that a strange thing to say? After all these years of it being part of the end, the achievement, the badge to wear, I have my 3rd-degree black belt right here behind me because I like knowing it's right there, But now it's not about that. Now it's about how exercise fuels my ability to leave a legacy and fulfill my purpose.
When did that switch happen? When did you
Yeah,
go from,
what a great
and I'll
question.
call it
Yeah.
this way, from achievement of a next level to achievement in your personal deep
I
mission?
love that. And can we do full disclosure? I love Jeff Downs. I just think he's one of the most remarkable people in the world. Jamie, you're remarkable too. I just know him better than you. But
Yes.
Jeff, I think you are a true visionary and a true thought leader and a force in the world for good. I'm proud to be your friend. So
Oh, thank you. Thank you so
now
much.
I'm getting emotional again. Holy moly.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Oh, I go back to the times when we spent in the car talking as we were going to a client, as we were driving across Kansas and talking, and I was learning all kinds of great things and how you've mentored me in my life. I mean, there's just all kinds of wonderful intersections that we've had. So
Is it
thank you.
true? So I really
Yeah.
feel that, I really feel this idea of purpose. And when you ask me, when did it shift? I have in my head a nomenclature that helps me. It's not a rehearsed answer, but it's something I've thought about a lot. So I'll just say it to you, and I'd love to watch your faces and see how you respond. So I believe that there are really 3 great stages to the life of a person who's called to leadership. That's what I know the most about. There are 3 stages. And the first stage is about achievement. You know, you're proving what you can do. I've known Jeff in years of achievement when, you know, you were outpacing everybody else and your results were better than anybody else's and your clients were more successful. There's a period where we're sort of proving to ourselves in the world what we're capable of doing. So I call that phase 1, achievement. Then there's a second phase, and remember, this is in the context of being called to lead. So there might be somebody else might say this differently. But to me, the second phase is scalability. So now you've proven what you can do. Great. Hoorah, right? Now, none of that applies anymore. Now you have to do something completely different. You have to prove that you can do things through other people. See the difference?
Mhm.
And so the second stage in my way of thinking about life is, I call it scalability, but you're proving that what you were able to do as an individual, you're now able to empower others to be able to do, so that you're a force multiplier. Your impact grows exponentially because now you got other people doing it. And then the third stage is the stage of legacy. And when I say legacy, I mean, have you built something with your life that will outlast you? I think it's the ultimate definition of success for those who are called to leadership. We might say it differently if you're an athlete or a philosopher or a minister or whatever. But in the leadership world, if you built something great and the moment you were gone, it fell apart, you were not successful. I don't care what your results were along the way, it didn't hold. It was too dependent upon you. So the legacy stage forces you to teach and empower and impart to others every single thing you know, and to give it away, give it to everybody who's willing to listen, so that if today is my last day, wouldn't that be beautiful? If today was my last day, I was on a podcast with Jeff and Jami Downs. Wow. then I would say,
I don't want it to be your last day.
I don't want it to be your last
I don't
day.
want that
no,
honor.
Nor do I. But see, the power of that is you really are in the business of giving away all that you know and all that you've learned. And you do that so that you have built something that will outlast you. Well, I am so in stage 3. Look how joyful I am about it. Rather than aging being a thing, like, oh boy, you wouldn't believe what aches and pains you have at 71. Holy moly, I could live in that space, and I know a lot of people who are living in that space. I'm over here where I'm like, holy moly, I get another day. I get to do this again today. I have 16 CEOs that I'm coaching in 5 different countries. And when I teach them something I know, or when I ask them a challenging question that nobody else is quite willing to ask them, and I watch on their face where insight comes. It's not always. It doesn't happen every time, but I see it. I think, wow, I just gave a piece of myself away, and that piece lasts forever. That person will carry that with them forever. So, in a way, it's like saying I get to live forever because pieces of me I've given away to everybody I could, in the sense of then they take those and go further with it. I warned you about my long answers. That was too long, wasn't it?
No, that's good. So how did you, I love the 3 stages, because I've never looked at it that way before, but I love that it helps to, if you identify where you are as a leader, if you're in the place where you're like, I'm proving myself, or if you're in this place where you're like, okay, I need to inspire others, and then legacy. I love that. I want to know kind of how you came up with that. Was it something that you've just noticed as you've witnessed kind of working with different people? And then the second question that maybe even I want more of an answer to is you said, I could live in this place of aches and pains, and that growing old is challenging, but I'm living in this place of excitement and enthusiasm and embracing the phase that I'm in. How have you been able to do that? Is that something that you feel like is part of your personality, or is it something that you've decided to do? And if you've decided to do that, what do you have that helps you stay in that place?
Wow. Now that's 2 powerhouse questions, Dave.
I know, sorry.
Holy moly, you get the award.
If you only want to answer one, that's fine.
If you want to answer one, you want the second one.
I want the second one answered. I want to know the how.
Then the first one is so easy. Let's clip that off, and then maybe we'll spend some time together talking about the second one. The first one, I'm so sad to say to you, I had to learn through experience, because when you're a high achieving individual, and then you become a leader of others, and you are immediately confronted with the fact that not all of those others want to do what you want them to do, and the things that used to work for you as an individual don't work for you as a leader to get your team. They don't speak the same language, or they're not motivated by the same things you are. Let me tell you, it's like being in an ice bath on a winter morning. What got you here. You know that Marshall Goldsmith phrase, "What got you here won't take you there." It's a way of speaking of that,
Yeah.
right? And in fact, a
Yeah.
lot of my coaching business today is with leaders who are mystified by this dilemma. I was the golden child. I was the high performer. I broke all the records. And now that I'm a leader, nobody's doing
I'm
what I want them
struggling.
to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Why can't I get them to do what I did?
yeah, come on and be like me, which is another path that doesn't work. So all I'm really trying to say is I learned this through experience. I learned because what used to work for me didn't work anymore, and I had to evolve and adapt. And because of that, because I walked that journey, now when someone comes to me, it's familiar territory. And I have such an easy ability to say, "Hey, let me tell you 3 things that are probably happening right now." And I go 1, 2, 3, and they're like, "How did you know that?" Well, I know it because I've lived it. So that the idea that we live in evolution, that we I forgot who said, somebody else said this, but we live the ascendant life, that we know we must keep evolving. We can't just stand still and bask in the 3 things that always worked for us at 30 when we're 40. We can't.
Right.
We have to keep evolving. Well, the amazing thing is that there's so much joy in evolution. There's so much joy, and it's not always about getting better. It's not like I'm now not trying to lift more weight, but I'm trying to be the most remarkably healthy 71-year-old you've ever known. So it's a shift. I have to evolve. I can't compete with all the young Greek gods and goddesses that I work out with. I can't do that, right? But I could be a really cool 71-year-old guy still doing it, still showing up every day and doing it. So I have to keep evolving, to make that happen. And then that was too long. And then when I come to the second part,
But I love that you said, I find joy in the evolution. Because I think sometimes it can be hard to let go of what was, especially if it was glorious. If, nobody wants to let go of the glory days.
I
You
always
like
want to be a
them.
Greek god.
I know. Who doesn't want to stay in the Greek god phase? So this embracing the joy of evolution, I like that. I like that a lot.
I think it is a way of living. It's a way of thinking about
Mhm.
living. And I think I remember saying to Jeff once, I never really wanted to be the former anything. There's no joy in that. Okay, so I was CEO of a company that won a bunch of awards. Okay, great. I'm proud of that. I'm not saying don't talk about that, but that's a million years ago. Or for a
Right.
little while when Jeff and I were together, I was the global managing consultant for Franklin Covey, author of a book. Those are all great things. I honor those milestones. They're very important. Like my 3rd-degree black belt is sitting on the shelf right behind me. I'm proud of those things. I honor them, but I can't live there. There's nothing to talk about. I've done all that. Let's talk about this. Let's go forward, right? And I think the thing that makes that possible, Jami, I finally wind my way around to actually answering your question,
I love it.
is that I feel called by a purpose. To feel
Mm.
called by a purpose. And I won't go deep on this unless you want to, but I'm amazed nowadays at the people who talk about or come to me about saying, I'm trying to find my purpose. I'm trying to find my purpose. It's such a common topic today. And I get a
Mhm.
lot of coaching clients under that topic. But the first thing I say to them is, I have such bad news. You don't find your purpose. It's not lost. It's not like your car keys. Where did I put it? Where's my phone? Oh my God, my purpose. Oh, it's over there. It's not like that. It doesn't work like that. You build your purpose. You build your
Mm.
purpose. And if you're building your purpose, you always have a life of meaning. You never wake up in the morning and say, oh boy, what's for lunch? You never, even though I like lunch a lot, you never wake up in the morning, and say, I don't know what I want to do. You're called by a purpose. So where the idea is I'm in the dark and I've got to find my purpose, I would abolish that way of thinking if I had the power. And I would say, let's change our verb. We build our purpose. So we build our purpose by knowing what our gifts are and being accountable for how we use them. We build our purpose by having a sense of the impact we want our life to have, and are we creating that impact? We build our purpose by, am I serving myself or am I serving others? Am I giving away what I know and what I learned to help others lift up? It's not hard. Well, it's not complicated. It just takes work. But the difference is, I said to a client just yesterday, I was trying to illustrate this, and he said, I just don't feel pulled by anything. I don't feel. And he said, how do you feel about your purpose? And I said, let me illustrate. I don't wake up and say, gosh, where's my purpose? Purpose, come, please. Where are you? I don't have that experience. This is what I wake up in the morning and I feel this. Let's go to work. I feel like my creator grabs me by the shirt and says, get up, it's time to get going. We got a lot to do today. And sorry, I'm a little emotional. And if you wake up feeling that way, first of all, you're never going to have a bad day, and you're never going to feel old and out of date and useless. No matter, I'm 71, so I can prove part of this, but I'm 5 minutes from now, I'll be 81. And I think I'll still be telling you the same thing, that I feel pulled by this sense of purpose. And it takes the shape that I've said about who am I helping and who am I serving and what impact am I leaving and what part of myself am I willing to give away and help other people with. All of that is what I could go run a 10K right now. I have so much energy talking to the two of you. And that's not a bragging about my physical health. That's an illustration of the power of purpose when it's applied to our life. We don't need to go looking for energy. Energy is there. Energy is the byproduct of living on purpose.
Oh, that's good. I like that. I also love, as you were talking, because when you talk about leaving a legacy, it feels like it's big. Like you got to do something that the world recognizes as big. And that can seem daunting. And as you were talking, I realized that I was like, I don't think it's that a legacy is something that the world recognizes as big, because as you were talking about individuals, helping people more one-on-one,
Right.
and the small impact that you have each day on the people that you interact with. And that is more, so that builds the legacy that you leave, rather than what sometimes feels like is communicated as chasing after this big event that enough people recognize and validate that you've left a legacy. That to me was a nice
And
mind
that
shift.
whole orientation, Jimmy, I just love what you just said. Congratulations. Best comment of the whole podcast so far is you.
No, thanks.
You did it. Yeah. When we think of, that's all achievement based. When we think about it, it has to be big, it has to be, So my language for that is, you're building a life that's outside in. In other words, you're evaluating the quality of your true life and self by how the outside world perceives and acknowledges you. And I think it's a path to disaster and depression.
Yeah.
So I build a life inside out. So how do I feel about myself? Inside. How do I feel about how I spent yesterday? Inside. And if I feel good about those things, my experience is the outside stuff will just take care of itself, having friends, being successful, moving through the world in a good and honorable way, and being of some service to other people are all byproducts of living from the center of your core, being purpose-led from the inside out. I think is a really powerful way. And I can say one other thing. It might be helpful in what you said. With great apologies, I have a riff on Dr. Covey's long-standing teaching of begin with the end in mind. He called it the eulogy exercise. Everybody knows this, right? And in true Jim Huling, got to make everything dramatic fashion, I riff on this with my clients, and I say, okay, here's what I want you to imagine. You died yesterday. You're dead. You're done. Everything you're going to do is done. It's over. The book is closed. Your record is sealed, what you did with your life. And we have all gathered at a celebration party of your life. You're dead now, by the way, but we've all gathered together to sort of talk about, who you were and the impact you had on our life. And depending on your persuasion, there's food being served or with music in the background, however much you want to go. But imagine that all the people who you interacted with in your life have gathered in this one room, and we're just having a little party to kind of celebrate the life you live. So your job, if it was you, Jami, your job, you're in the other world now. So your job is to walk invisibly through all of us and eavesdrop on the conversations we're having. So you'd walk by one person that says, "Oh, Jami was the best friend. If I had a problem, I could always call her. She was the one person who would listen and not judge me." And you walk to another part of the room, Jeff, and somebody is saying, when I had a problem I couldn't solve, I knew who to go to. I would go to Jeff. And whenever I went to Jeff, he made time for me. He helped me. And he never made me feel stupid because I couldn't figure it out. He helped me feel more capable as he helped me figure it out. So in other words, you're walking around the room and you're just eavesdropping on what we're saying. Well, if you want to build your own purpose statement, just make a list of all the things you hope people are saying at that party. What is it you want us to be able to say? And then live that out. Live that way. Be that friend. Be that leader. Be that counselor, But if you need a vision, it's really easy. Just imagine you're all done. What do you hope we will say, And then try to live by that and live that out. I think that's a way of making it not seem so unattainable, not so magnificently large, that then you're overwhelmed and you think, "Oh, I'll start tomorrow."
As I hear you talking, Jim, I think about, and we'll take a streaking moment here for just a second, because
please.
streaking is all about building from the inside out. And the actions and activities that I do are in association with who I want to be. And so doing this eulogy exercise and being able to walk invisibly among those who are friends and family members and individuals with whom you've had contact and association, and hearing what they or what you want them to say, and then associating streaks around that. So for example, one of my streaks is to connect with at least one of my children daily. And that is something that comes from that very inner core of wanting to be that father, grandfather now. Believe it or not, I am a grandfather, 4 grandchildren. And being able to be that person is going to require an action, but it's an intrinsic action that not anyone necessarily will see, but I'll keep track every single day that I've done that particular thing.
That's beautiful.
So
And
that's beautiful.
you mind if I just tag onto that? And they will keep
Please.
track because you're writing inscriptions on the heart that can't be erased. When I first wrote a eulogy for my daughter Sarah to give about me, this is way back when I was learning the 7 habits. The first line I wrote, and there were no computers back then, believe it or not, on a yellow legal tablet. First line I wrote was Sarah saying, "My dad was always there for me." First thing I wanted her to be able to say. Well, I've often said, if she could just say that one thing, I would count it a life well lived as her dad. He was always there for me. That has everything in it. So even when we're talking about this, you see how streaking is the essential element, right? So even if you don't remember, what I find, Jeff, is they remember. They remember the camping trips or the things like that, but then they also remember just the quiet moments, where we were just hanging out together or we were watching a movie or we were whatever we were doing, because it's our presence that ends up being the greatest gift we have. Don't you think? I mean, certainly we give our material things and we give our skills and we give our help and we drive them to wherever it needs to be driven. We do all the things. But at the end of all that, it was our presence that made the event meaningful. It wasn't the drive to school. It was the conversation during the drive to school, that they will remember. So, but we forget, don't we? We're like, "Oh, I'm so busy and these kids, and I've become a chauffeur and a cook."
Yes, we forget why we're doing all of it.
We forget how happy we will be one day when we look back, when we hear our children tell their children about the experience of being parented by us, then it will all be worth it. Every moment of it will be worth it in that. When you hear your kid telling their kid about something you did, your whole heart will come alive in that moment. And it will all seem like, "Oh, I wish I could go back and do 10 of those instead of just one."
That is so beautiful.
One of the things that I love about what we're talking about here is the verb build. Build is such an encouraging word.
Yeah.
It's such a word that gives me the opportunity to actually do something rather than find. Find is so hard because
Find gives you this feeling of like Russian roulette or spinning you spin the wheel and see where it lands. You don't have as much control over
what you
find.
find.
Yeah,
right.
it's just
But
like you
what
just
you
find it. You
build,
get lucky.
that's such a significant thing.
Yes.
So my next question is in that realm.
Yeah.
So you've worked with leaders, as you've mentioned, and you're consulting CEOs right now, and you're helping. As you work with individuals in helping them to build, this is one exercise you use, the eulogy exercise. What other exercises or things do you do to help them to get to building their purpose?
Yeah. Oh gosh, what a wonderful question. And I'm so painfully aware that I have like 90 minutes of answer for that question. So I'm really wow.
Just download it to us, Jim. Just let's
No.
plug in and download your knowledge.
Jamie, Jeff and I, many years ago, we spent a whole day in the car together, and I'm not sure I ever stopped talking. But if I ever did stop talking, he just asked me another question, and here we go again.
That's right.
Without sounding formulaic, I have worked, 300 or so people. I've coached through the process of what is it
Great.
you're trying to do with your life? What are you building? So I have found 4 questions that provide the answer to what you said. Do you mind if I just say them 1, 2, 3, 4? Without
Yes,
We'd love
that'd
to
be
have them.
great.
Yeah, say 1,
I'm
2,
not
3, 4,
reading
and then
from
you
a
can
text or
expand on
anything, but there are 4 questions if answered from the heart and in a patient way. It takes a while for these answers to surface. They really can form the blueprint of what's missing and what you're truly longing for. If we really have. So the 4 questions. The first question is, when have you felt filled with purpose? Jeff, I think you and I have talked about this question. So the very first question, we don't go forward, we look backward. When in your life so far have you felt filled with purposeful is a good word. And we're not talking about times of greatest achievement. We're not talking about performer of the year, or I got the award, or I got a bonus. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking about inside. When have you felt full of purpose? And a little rubric I have that helps people. Sometimes these ways of saying things make it go in the brain easier. Is I say, well, think about it. Think about all the moments of your life so far, but see how they pass this test. There are 5 rights. Am I holding up my hand? Yeah, 5 rights.
Yep.
So when was I the right person, doing the right thing, in the right way, with the right people, for the right reason? 5 rights. Got to check those boxes. The right person, doing the right thing, in the right way, for the right reason, with the right people. The more of those boxes you can check, what you're remembering is probably a pivotal moment in your life. And it's pivotal because it has clues for your future. Right? So when have you felt purposeful? And I want so much to say this little vignette really fast, I promise, is this story. Jeff knows this story because I was CEO of a really good company, and I was very proud to have been that. And I was also, by the 11th year of being a CEO, which is really dog years, as you know, it's like 70 years. I was dreadfully unhappy. I was really burned out. My expression is I was hollowed out from the inside, because I had spent too many years doing work that did not replenish and refuel me. So I was giving pieces of myself away, but not in a way that brought me anything back. So I was just empty. And so I did this exercise. I just came to this exercise. And it came to this exercise because I was sitting in my office at 10 o'clock at night, Friday night. Everybody was gone home. Here's isn't this a sad story? The lonely CEO, only light in the building still on. He's hunched over his desk, But that's a little Ebenezer Scrooge's, isn't it? But I was really in that spot. And I remember sitting in my office. Now, there's nobody else. It's 10 o'clock at night. There's nobody in the building. And I finally just yelled out to the walls of my office. I said, "This is not the life I want." And it was just it was this visceral thing that I'd not been willing to say.
Wow.
But I held it in. But here it came. Thank God nobody was in the office. You imagine people, is that the CEO that said this is not the life? It just came up. This is not the life I want. And hand on my heart, you and I share a faith that calls for truthfulness in all things. When I said that, I heard an answer. It doesn't matter to me if I really heard it or it came in some other way, because I got the answer. So the answer came back in the form of a question. Well, what is the life you want? So I want to tell everybody listening to this podcast, if you get worked up enough to shout a question to the universe, be ready that an answer is going to come. It's not
The universe might answer back.
It may come back.
The answer came back, well, what is the life you want? And in that exact moment, I say with all the humbleness I have, I realized I didn't know the answer. I knew what I didn't want, for sure. I could give you a list. But when the question was turned around, I said, well, what is it that you want? It's like finding Aladdin's lamp on the sidewalk. And you rub it, and the genie comes out and says, well, you're not Aladdin. What are you doing with the lamp? I don't know, whatever that story would be. and I imagine the genie says, well, okay, since I'm here, I'll give you one wish. What do you want? And then it would be like me saying, can you come back tomorrow? I need to think about it.
I need a little time to think.
I need a little time, right? Which tells you something inescapable. It tells you that I was living every day without a sense of what I really wanted. I didn't know the answer to the question. I was so tangled up in what I didn't want that I had done no real work on what I did want. So that moment started this journey. And the reason I tell you that story is because that's when I said, well, when have I been happy? It was just as simple as that. And that's led to remembering these moments and my 5 rights and all those things. But at the end of that exercise, I had 17 moments that I could truthfully say I was full of purpose. I was on purpose. 17 moments. Now, remember, I was 35 years old at this point. So I'd been alive a while. There were only, and by the way, excluding marrying the love of my life, who I'm still with 43 years, and the birth of my children and meeting Jeff Downs. These are all in the putting that to the side. But in terms of professionally, 17 peak moments, 17 moments filled with purpose. Here's the punchline. Not one of those moments was as a CEO. Now, I've been a CEO for 11 years at this point, and I didn't have one moment that made the list. That's sobering, right?
That's some significant realization.
Yeah.
Well, guess what I was doing? 12 of the moments, I was standing in front of a group of people, teaching them something that I thought was powerful. 4 of the moments, I was writing about something that I thought would be helpful and would be powerful. And a couple of the others were a one-off. So in other words, 89% of my best moments had been doing the very thing I was not doing. And so that moment it led to the pivot where I said, okay, I'm going to build my next chapter around having peak moments all the time. I want to feel that. I want to feel filled with purpose all the time. Well, how do I do that? Well, I start doing the things that have made me feel purposeful in the past. I use it as clues to design my next. And of course, that's when I joined Franklin Covey, the world's greatest learning organization in the world, and started a 14-year journey and wrote 2 books and, had a chance to meet Jeff Downs and all the great things that happened in those years. But I would never have done it if I'd not asked that question.
Wow.
So I'm
Just
sorry
real
that
quick
went on.
before you go on to the next question, the discipline that it took for you to really think through those moments, that wasn't just a second of time. That was like, okay, I really need to go back and think about those opportunities. Had you been keeping a journal or anything like that, or was it just basically asking yourself that question and really getting into that answer? And what amount of time did that occupy?
I'm so glad you said this, because if I'd not said this, I would have left all of our listeners with one of the most important clues. It was weeks. It took weeks.
Okay.
It's like you send a request down the chute and you're waiting for the response. Well, these are not instant responses. I mean, I thought of 2 or 3 things right away, but to end up with 17 probably took a month.
Okay.
So I tell everybody, make the request, ask your heart, when have I been most on purpose, full of purpose? And then give your heart time to answer, because some of those memories are buried way down there. They're a long time ago, or they're very deep, So take your time. You spent a lot of years getting to where you are today. How about another year figuring out where you want to go next? Even if it's not an
Where you wanna go.
unreasonable request, right? But that ended up being the pivotal moment of my life, and that's what led me to Franklin Covey and all the wonderful things that, came from it. So that's question number one, and I'm gonna go really fast for the others because I know what I've done. I've done it again, haven't I? Taken a long time. Second question, who do you feel called to serve? Now, when I'm working with a CEO, they've not in recent memory been asked who they serve. They're very cognizant of who serves them. And that's not a
Right.
judgment. I'm not passing judgment on them. I'm just saying in the nature of your life as a CEO, you're in a different environment where people are there to follow your direction and do what you ask them to do.
Mhm.
So this question, I call it the humility question because it reverses your whole perspective. Who am I here? Who do I feel most called to serve? And sometimes that's young people. Some people are called to work with younger generation. Some people are called to work with midlifers. I still call myself a midlifer. I know that's a joke, but some people are called to work with people in industry. Some are called with technology. Some people are called to be spiritual advisors. So in other words, when you think about it, you have all the choices in the world. Who do you most want to help? Those are probably your people, right? That's the second question. Who do you feel called to serve? Third question is, what gifts do you bring? So I'm not talking about your Gallup strengths. I love those programs, and those are wonderful. But I'm way deeper than that. So I think in the faith that we all share, we believe we were given certain gifts, and we were given those gifts because they would be necessary to fulfill our purpose. That's not imposing any system of belief on anybody, but that's pretty basic, right? So I believe there will come some moment in my existence when I will be in some way accountable for what I did with the gifts I was given. And I'm not trying to say judgment or punishment, or I'm not saying any of those things, but I'm saying I think it's right that if I was given gifts, at some point somebody's got to say, hey, by the way, what'd you do with all the stuff we gave you?
Right.
So that feeling of your gifts, inventorying what gifts you really bring to the table to fulfill this purpose is one of the most humbling but empowering exercises I've ever done. So you just list the things. What do I have? What do I have to offer? What are my natural strengths? What are some skills I've learned? What are some things I know how to do? And most of the time when people make that list, I can really see the tide turn. Because the awareness that you have a lot of gifts brings with it this sense that you have a lot of capability. You have a lot of potential. And it also, since you got a little bit of responsibility too, because you were given all these gifts, So it's some kind of magic is in that question of that. So what gifts do I bring is the third question. And then the last one we've already talked about. So it's what impact do I want to leave? So I'm not focused on today. I'm not focused on what I can get. I want to focus on the fourth question is, what do I want to leave behind? How do I want to have made the world a different and better place because I lived? What is that?
Mhm.
And that's right. We've already talked about, wandering around, listening to what we'll all say about Jeff one day. He was the greatest friend in the world, that kind of. So those four questions are I give it freely to everybody's listening, my way of working through. If you're really serious about this question and about designing the next chapter of your life, asking deeper questions is the place to start. Don't start with the ergonomics of it or the technicalities of it, or I don't have a degree, or I don't have, don't start there, start here. And those four questions will take you to the right place.
Of the people who you've worked with, how many have answered those questions sincerely, honestly, gone to and stayed where they were? And how many have said, you know what, I need to switch up? It's not,
It's a good question.
this is not where I want to be.
Yeah.
It's such a Jeff Downs question. It's right to the heart of the matter, but it's your special gift. I would quite honestly, without having a tabulation in my hands, say 20% abandon the pursuit the moment I describe the four questions.
Okay.
The moment you describe the four
Right there,
questions,
when I say, hey, here's the four things. If you're willing to go deep, I'll go with you. Let's do it together. 4 questions. 20% will say, not for me.
It's not
And
working
I
for
don't know
me.
what that
Okay.
is. I'm not wise enough to diagnose that, except maybe something in the heart says I'm not ready, or maybe it says I'm not willing. I don't know. But it's probably one of those two things. And all you can do is to say, I bless you, and how else can I help you? But I know that's
Yeah.
not a person who's going to take that journey with me. And about 80% begin, and of the 80% that begins, vast majority of them will finish. So one more time in our life, look at the streaking applications here, which are quite evident of, beginning the inertia of going from not designing your life to designing your life it's the pivot that's hard. And then
Yeah.
once you do it, you're off and running, It's just like exercise, the same thing. Hey, wait, it's just like streaking.
It is. Getting started is always hard.
Getting started.
It's always hard. And I think it is interesting that 20%, because I could see, I loved that you said, how long did it take to develop, to think about those moments in your life? It is a lot of work to think about, what have I really enjoyed? It's a lot of work to think, what are my gifts? What am I bringing to the table? And I think sometimes but it's a different kind of work. It's not a work where you can physically go out and do it. And I think sometimes there's a lot of comfort in physically doing something as opposed to the thought that takes the effort that takes in thinking about these kinds of things.
So wise
Right.
and right, team.
Yeah.
And
So-
by the way, if you're doing, there's not much vulnerability in that.
No.
If I could go,
There's a lot of safety.
man, I've got laundry to fold, I've got stuff to,
Yes.
I'll do that later. I think that's
Yeah.
normally, it's too vulnerable. I'm not prepared to be that vulnerable.
Right.
Or maybe, and I'm not trying to pass judgment on anybody, everybody's got their own journey. Maybe I'm a little bit afraid of what the answers might be. I think
Yes.
that can be, because the answers can be, when the questions are deep, the answers are convicting on everybody,
Yes.
for everything, right? With the deeper the question, the more convicting. So it's natural in some ways, perhaps, to say,
Right.
I'm not ready for that today.
I'm not ready for that. Yeah.
And so that's,
And I wonder sometimes if people are afraid, like, there's comfort in doing what you've done. The idea of going through this process and then gaining the knowledge and realizing I've got to do something different. There's now,
Or even the fear of
or
realizing
the fear
that
of
you
realizing
may
it,
have to
yes,
do something
that
different.
you may have to
or
do
whatever.
something different. Yeah, and you can't. Once you know something, you can't unknow it. you're now responsible and stuck with that knowledge. And so I could see where there'd be some people who are like, yeah, I'm not ready for that yet.
yeah,
I'll
I get
just
all
keep
worked
doing
up
what I'm
about that.
doing.
What if I get all full of purpose and all that? I'm up for my life. We'll do that.
It's too much.
Let's go back to Netflix.
Seriously. Oh, wow.
As we've gone along, since we talked last, which was years ago, we determined what has changed technologically is the introduction of AI. And AI has had a massive impact on how we work and what it is we do. And if it hasn't had a massive impact,
It has.
It will.
It will.
It will. I mean, it's going.
I think we're
forward.
at the beginning of a lot of change.
Sure, for sure.
Yeah. The question I have for you as you work with leaders, so this deep reflection and everything that is there requires a lot of internal thought and so forth, which is wonderful. And maybe not an and. So maybe even setting that aside for a second and saying, okay, so now as you work with leaders, how are you working with or helping them work with AI, or what does that look like now in your world? Because one thing, and I'll tell you this is a great little story, and I apologize. This is a long explanation for a very short question, but I'm going to give it to you.
Oh, it's a Jim Huling style answer.
I'll adopt the Jim Huling style. I was asked to give a keynote for AFPM, which is the American Fuel Petroleum Manufacturers. And the keynote was on leadership and consistency. I was speaking on streaking. Before I got up, the individual who was on stage before me was a renowned expert in artificial intelligence. And he spoke for 60 minutes on all the ways that artificial intelligence is going to enhance and improve our lives and make really significant achievements possible that we hadn't thought possible in the past. And as I'm sitting there listening to this, I'm thinking to myself, I'm going on after this guy. I, if this isn't the ultimate upstage, I don't know what is, because I'm talking about probably one of the most dull subjects you could possibly talk about, which is being consistent in your life.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, and being a consistent leader. And so, and this is, as to your point, there's some divinely inspired moments that happen. And I remember this was a 1,300 person audience. I was walking up to the stage from the back as they were making the introduction. And as I was walking up, I was praying and I was going, God, what do I do here?
Yeah.
Because this audience will lose interest very quickly if I don't make some type of a connection to what just happened. And as I remember this forever, as I stepped onto the stage, it all of a sudden came to me. And I looked out at this audience of 1,300 people and I said, that was probably one of the most amazing keynotes I have heard. And what AI can do for us is amazing. Didn't all of you feel that and see what the potential is? Then I paused. I said, but here's the kicker. Without HI, there is no AI.
Wow.
And without that human intelligence, without the leadership intelligence, AI will do nothing for us.
Wow.
And that's what I'm here to speak to you about today, is your intelligence and how you build that. That was where I went to. And that was God-given. That was not me. That was completely God-given.
Sure.
And it was wonderful. So for the next 45 minutes, we talked about essentially in different terms what you and I and Jami have been talking about here. So with that as a background and a preface, please tell us your thoughts, your story as you go forward.
Well, I'll make it. I don't think I can top that, my friend. Thanks for setting the bar like way out of my reach. But I do have a thought about it, and it's really a thought born out of, I have this cadre of leaders who look to me for guidance on various things, and this has become one of the most common questions. And so the thought I have is really very close to your answer, but is not as eloquent as your answer is. I find that the real dilemma around artificial intelligence as we have it today, what happens tomorrow, I don't know. I might want to re-record the sentence, or who knows, right?
I know.
But it is the quest for authenticity. It's authenticity it's the lack of authenticity or the presence of it, I think, that troubles us about AI. And let me just give you a ridiculously simple example. I live, neither of you did. I lived in the time before there were computers. I lived in the time before there were personal computers. There certainly were no phones or all these things. But I remember when computers came out with word processing. This was a revolution. They'll look at me like that. Yeah. But it really happened. It was revolutionary. And I remember people saying that the presence of a word processor that would spell check and offer alternative phrasing was going to be the end of great writing. I remember people actually believing this. It's all over. If it's almost
over.
like if
all authors have now been relegated to nothing.
You're done, right? If you don't have a quill and a bottle of ink and you're, Benjamin Franklin leaning over the desk, your stuff is no good, right? But I think about that. That's a true story, by the way. I think about that example often now is, what's the real difference if I have a very rough, very kludgy, misspelled, brilliant paragraph, and I dump it into some system that says, hey, Jim, great job. Here's a little bit better version.
Right.
What's the problem with that? Well, the only problem that I can see is this one of authenticity. So in other words, am I portraying this as something I did alone? Or am I portraying this as something I did with the help of whatever tools were available to me at the time? See where I'm trying to go with this? Well, if you put it in that arena, then what are we so concerned about? Thank God for spell check.
Right.
I would never have written a book if it hadn't been for spell check. Goodness gracious. And when my ChatGPT comes back and says, hey, I love this point, but I think it could be said more simply this way, I hear a choir singing somewhere in the heavens, like, thank you,
Thank
right,
you.
right. But I think it's the fact that it was my thought and it was my expression that I've asked you to help me make better. So
Mhm.
it's a little bit, this is not good language, I think, but it's a little bit of who's the master, who's the servant. That if this technology is done in service to what we feel our true message, our true expression, our true wisdom, our true insight, if it is implemented in service to that, thank God for it, because it's
Yeah.
just gonna make our message better, right? Why would we have a problem with that? Now, I
Right.
suppose on the other hand, just for balance, if we said, I know nothing about this subject. I put no work into understanding this subject. I have no background in this subject. I've done no research in this subject. I simply asked this tool to give me a white paper, and I've turned it over to you with my name on the byline, and you think better of me because of this paper. I had to really work to construct that example, but in that circumstance, okay. But I still think the core element, and you may feel I'm being too simplistic, I don't know, is a question of authenticity. Is this real, in other words? And so, like,
Yeah.
right now, there's all this conversation about certain characters that AI uses, like a long dash. And, oh, if you have a long dash, it's fake. It's, well, seriously? Really?
Really? That's where you're going.
And I used long dashes before we even knew what they were called. But I think what those people are trying to express is the fear that you're getting credit for something that you didn't, or you're taking credit for something that you didn't earn. I think that's this question of authenticity is what's
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's a great point. The authenticity. I think of when you and Chris were writing the four disciplines of
Mm.
execution. I
Right.
remember sitting in the office and watching you two come to the realization that you would be great for each other.
Mhm.
Prior to that, Chris was trying a ghostwriter. You remember that? He was trying to have a ghostwriter. And I don't know if you were involved with the ghostwriter as well, but one of the things I think about is, and to your point, is how many writers
Yeah.
have ghostwriters.
Mhm.
And why do they have ghostwriters? It's not because it's not their
I'm
thoughts
sure.
and what they're putting together. It's that they may not have a command of the language in a way that's going to express that thought in a very clear
Often all.
and formidable way. And therefore, you as a writer, you as an individual that are
Mm.
strong at writing can take my kludgy paragraph and
Mm.
sentence and chapter and put it together in a way, or let's even step back from that. Here's the three thoughts that I had, and I've thought deeply about this for a long time.
Mm.
Can you write this out? And they return something to you, and you say, you know what, that's right, but that's not quite right, and that's right, but that's not right at all, and I need to reshape that. Isn't that what we're asking AI to do?
That's
Mhm.
exactly right. And isn't that great? What's
Yeah,
not great about that? So
yeah,
if we somehow could settle with ourselves that we have a tool, people are going to use the tool, the world's probably a better place for the use of that tool, at least in the ways we've spoken about it today.
Right,
People
right.
of good intention trying to do honorable work, of course. Then why don't we just celebrate it? And let's stop noticing whether you used a long dash, and let's look at the content of the paper that you turned
And I
in.
think some of what I feel like the thread of what we've talked about today is embracing the work. So you don't
Mm.
find your purpose, you build your purpose. You're not just going to have things like that. When we ask the questions, these deep questions, it's not just going to come to you, the answers.
Mm.
It's going to take some thought process and
Mm.
some
Mm.
time. I think the same thing with technology. I think if we just embrace the fear, it's also a way of shunning the work.
Mm.
Anytime that something new comes along,
Hmm.
it's going to take us time to understand how to use it in a way that is beneficial for people, and to understand that there will always be bad actors. There will always be people that are striving to use it in a negative way, and not to shun an entire opportunity because there's always going to be a downside.
That's right.
I think a lot
I
when
do.
for us it was texting a lot. With we had teenagers when texting became very, and very popular, and it was always talked about how teenagers will never learn how to talk to people, and the truth is there is some truth to the disconnect that has come with technology for teenagers, but there's also come a huge amount of connection, that their
Well, one of the things
ability,
we talk about is how quickly they can
how
organize and
quickly
be
they can
together as
be
friends.
together, and how aware they are of each other, and how quickly they can notice when someone's not there and find out why they're not there. And so there's a huge amount of opportunity, but it always comes at a cost, and it always comes at a price. And part of that price is us learning how to use it and how to embrace the parts that are going to be positive, and to acknowledge the parts that are going to be negative, and work towards solutions, work towards ways of teaching people of the dangers, but also being aware that it's like, yeah, that's going to take work and a level of effort.
Beautiful. So
And so,
then I often wonder if what I was thinking, why as you were saying that, we really have to get clear about whether we're troubled by the method or the message.
yes,
Right.
that's
So
really
if
good.
the message is good and honorable and uplifting and it helps the world become a better place, do I really care whether you had a pencil and a piece of paper or a word processor or an AI? I
Right.
don't think I do. I think what I care about is what was your intention as you created this message? What did you infuse this message with? What spirit did you infuse into this message? That's what I care about. And so
That's good.
the same with texting, it's I have a ritual with my daughter where every night of her life I had said, night, night, sweet girl. Sorry to be so literal, but I've just said this, I love you, and, sleep tight tonight. And then as she lives in her own place now, texting has become the way that we do that. So I
Yep.
now have a daughter who's approaching 40, who has never gone to sleep a single night of her life without the last thing she heard from her dad being, I love you, sleep tight.
Yeah.
Every night of her life. She has no nights of her life where that wasn't the last thing she heard.
Sounds like a great streak,
I
Yeah.
Jim.
like
I
a
like that
Great.
streak.
right?
And I love that technology has enabled you to be able to do
That's my
that.
point, right? So I
Yeah.
bless
Yep.
texting. I know all
Yep.
the downsides. I see it.
Right.
My
Yeah.
grandkids don't even say okay anymore. They just say K.
Okay.
It's like, what's left? There's
Yeah.
gonna be nothing left.
It used to be OKAY, and then it was okay, and now it's just K. That was so. This was kind of funny. We have, for my 50th birthday a couple years ago, they all of my kids wrote fun things, and my siblings wrote
Mhm.
fun things about me. And one of the fun things was how well I punctuate my text messages. And I had to laugh, because when it was given to me, I was like, "Are you not supposed to punctuate your
Yeah, what's
text
up with
messages?
that?
Are they making fun of me?"
This is the way I was taught, right? But I think it's beautiful. And maybe of everything we've said today, there is this theme. Jeff, I think you already said it, but there's this theme of um, purpose-driven evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Yes.
I heard someone the other day talk about living the ascendant life. I still like that language.
Yeah.
But maybe maybe evolution is a better word than ascendant. Feels a little challenging maybe, but this purpose-driven evolution, let it never stop. And yes, occasionally it's going to take a form that's not what I would have done. Okay. Sometimes it will take a form. But either way, I want to be part of the evolution. I don't want to be the resistor to a good and honorable evolution. Yeah, we're certainly, as you said, not talking about bad actors and those who have bad intentions. That's something completely different. But in our context, bless texting, bless AI. let's just use it for good. Let's make
Right.
ourselves instruments of the instrument for good. And then
Yeah.
I think a lot of what we're worried about goes away. Now, if someday there is an automated entity that can do something I do today, and I know this is challenging. I don't mean to speak casually about it, but I say I want my mindset to be, bless you. You may now take over that repetitive task, and I will accept the challenge to find something that only I can do.
Mhm.
Let me just live that way. And yes, I have to grow. Yes, I have to learn something new. Yes. I started a newsletter recently. I think and I had
Yep.
to learn all kinds of things. Holy moly, it's complicated. And you create your broadcast and you create your message and you have a little video and you have to put it in exactly the right place. I'm 70 years old, picking my way through something, that a teenager could have done in about 35 seconds. I'm having to open the manual and say, okay. Well, I got it now. I know exactly how to do it now. And I have a newsletter that's reaching thousands of people all over the world. But I never would have gotten there if I'd said, oh, no, that newsletter text, I'm not doing all that. Oh, no, I'm not doing Where would then my message would just be still inside my head. It would never get out into the world. So why not? Why not live in a purpose-led evolution and just accept that those are the things that come with them?
With that, we're going to come to a close here. This has been so amazing. I think about intentional and deliberate as very close cousins or brother or sister to that evolution life, right? That intentional and deliberate. It's one of the areas where, as we look at becoming who you want to be, answering those 4 questions, all of that is work that as you do, then you can start to think about the action that you need to take to become that person. And with that, be very consistent. Jim, just a couple of last thoughts from you, please, tell us a little bit about Execution Insights and what the brainchild was behind that and how you came up with it. Let's end there.
It's very kind of you to do that. And I promise I will be very brief about this. And Jeff, you and I have been on a journey together. Thank goodness. I hope we're 20 years from now, we're still great friends and doing things together. But we had a real wonderful journey through the 4 disciplines of execution. It's one of the great chapters in my life. Still one of the things I'm most proud of having been part of. And God bless Chris McChesney and all the people who made all that possible. But I retired from that work about 3 years ago, and I went into one-to-one executive coaching, which I love. In fact, I told you, Jeff, the other day that I think I finally found the job I was really born for, which is one-on-one executive coaching, which is strange. It took me 70 years to get here. But I really think I have found it. But with that comes a physical constraint. You can only coach so many people. You only have so many hours in the day, and you only have so much energy with which to coach, right? So I have had a full calendar for 2.5 years. I have a waiting list of people. One person's been waiting 6 months to get on my coaching docket, and I just can't fit them in. Thank God nobody else is left. So, I don't want to wish for that. But anyway, it gave me this very real problem that I still have a heart to reach a lot more people, and I have no capacity and no way to reach those people in this way. It's a little bit like our whole podcast today. So I just said, well, what could I do? And I had a very dear friend who said, well, you should do a newsletter. That you can get outside the algorithm. You can reach everybody that's willing to subscribe, and I thought, okay, that's a good idea. But I wasn't all that fired up about writing more words. I'm writing lots of words now. Then another dear friend said, you should do video. Now, with this face and this hair, nobody has ever suggested to me I go on camera in my life. Nobody's ever said. But this dear friend said, I think you would do well on video. And she was so right. And I found the video part of it to be effortless. So I now have a video-based 5-minute insight-packed message that goes out every single week. And if anybody's interested, Jeff, do you mind if I just say executioninsights.com?
Please give it to us. Yeah.
It's all you need to know, executioninsights.com. You can go there. You can subscribe. You'll get every Tuesday, you'll get a message from me. But you can also see the whole library so far of previous messages. So you won't have missed anything if you're interested and you want to go back. But that becomes a portal now through which I can spend that time every week, record a video that I hope is valuable and worthy, and then send it out to the world. And it breaks all barriers of hours in the day or energy in the body. That allows me to do something I couldn't do any other way. So it's just been one of the best things that's ever happened to me.
Wow.
And it's
That's really cool.
off like a rocket so far, thank God. So
Great.
And I know you're both subscribers, so as
That
I
is
am.
wonderful. Well, Jim, thank you for joining us today. Streakers, this has been one of the most anticipated and wonderful conversations that we've had in quite some time. Jamie and I are so excited to host Jim and to have him on, and this will lead to another one in the future because we've got a lot more with to discuss. It'll be wonderful. Streakers, if you have any questions or would like to reach out to us, please do so by emailing me, Jeffrey, Jeffery, at MyStreaksApp.com or
Jami, Jami, at MyStreaksApp.com.
Until we talk together again, we hope you have a marvelous, fantastic, wonderful day. Jim, thank you for being on.
Thank you.
And as always,
keep streaking.
A better you. just a little